When was the last time you actually let yourself cry? Because whether you like the fact that you're crying, whether you want to or don't want to feel the way you feel in that moment is irrelevant, because that's how you really feel. And by not validating that emotion, all you're doing is creating that emotional blockage. You start to get rashes, headaches, stomach aches, you start to overreact. All of these things start to happen because you are denying how you really feel. And your body produces 3 types of tears: basal tears, reflex tears, and then you have emotional tears. And they are what we're going to be talking about today. But here's where it gets really interesting about emotional tears. Emotional tears that's actually what's happening. That's the purpose of tears. Imagine it like a pressure cooker. Every emotion that you suppress, anger, sadness, a little bit of fear, every time you choose not to release that emotion, that pressure just builds. And this is what happens when we don't deal with these emotions. We just stuff them down. We experience pain, anger, confusion. We can feel it building within us. But we resist, we tighten up, we distract, and we do it under the guise of staying strong. But here's what nobody tells you. That strength is suppression. Because if you can't access your sadness, you will also struggle to access joy. Today's episode could get a little bit uncomfortable for some people, because today I'm going to talk about crying. I've had a very complicated relationship with crying my entire life. When I was a kid, as you guys know, if you watched Slavery with Addiction, the documentary I did with Ryan McFall, you'll know that my father used to beat me as a child. He used to beat and torture all of us in my family, my brothers, my sister, my mother, and myself. One of the things he used to do is he used to beat me so relentlessly until I started crying. Obviously, very distressing. But then something else would happen. He would continue to beat me, demanding that I stopped crying. And over time, I practiced and, depending on how you want to frame it, perfected controlling my tears. And when I say controlling my tears, what I mean is I stopped crying. I learned to not cry. I learned to control the crying. Usually, the things I found the hardest were watching my siblings get beaten, watching them, as small as they was, helplessly getting hurt. Found that very distressing. And then he would get angry at seeing me cry, and if I didn't control those tears, then there'd be a problem. I don't know what that was about. I don't know why he wanted us to stop crying after he made us cry. Perhaps it was because, and this is speculative, but perhaps it was because those tears made him feel a certain way and he didn't like the way it felt. Therefore, crying being something he needed us to stop doing, even though he caused it. So you can understand that I have a particularly complicated relationship with tears, and it's become a kind of obsession of mine in the last few years, mainly due to an experience I had a little while back, which I'll move on to in a little while. But I've come to realize that we are so lucky to have this crying experience. But unfortunately, we deny it very often. Think about it like this. When we cry, it's usually not something that we have any control over. If something makes us sad, we feel that urge to cry and tears come out, and sometimes we can style it and disguise it, and other times it's much more difficult to do that and we're not able to. But whatever happens, it's our body's inbuilt way of dissipating emotion. We cry when we see happy things. We cry when we experience sadness. We cry for ourselves. We cry for others. Crying is this incredible mechanism within the body that enables us to manage our emotions, our tears. Very often people report feeling better after they've cried, and as I'm going to discuss, that's not by mistake. I've got a bit of research. Like I said, I've become obsessed with it. For me, crying was something that I understood cognitively. I knew what crying meant. As I've explained in other episodes, I'd become very good at understanding emotions through the lens of other people. So I understood what emotions meant, and I learned how to interpret those emotions and how to then correct my behavior or put my behavior in a certain way so that I could navigate whatever situation I was in. However, I never necessarily translated it to my own emotions. Crying was something that I cognitively understood, but not emotionally. I'd never really, since them early days of experiencing tears, and let's face it, those early days are when we start to understand the world and make sense of the people and the places and this experience that we call life. And during those times, I had decided or come to understand that tears were not something that was safe to have. So I practiced shutting them down, controlling them, not allowing them. But here's the thing. Tears are just liquid emotion, and one way or another, they're still going to wreak havoc on your body and your soul. There was this time that I remember sitting alone, feeling completely and utterly drained. There was no noise, no distractions, just me and my thoughts, me and my past, me and all of the things that I'd been ignoring. or telling myself weren't true. They're always running. Think of it like leaving the interior light in your car on. It's not a big light, it's only a tiny light. But if you leave it on, it's draining the battery slowly. But one day you come out and you turn your car on and it doesn't start because the battery's gone. And this is what happens when we don't deal with these emotions. We just stuff them down. We experience pressure, pain, anger, confusion. And most often, we can feel it building within us. But we just don't have the language or the bravery at times to speak the words, to say them. Because if we say them out loud, they become true. They become something that happened, something real. For some of you, you'll know that feeling. Feels like something's knocking from the inside, trying to get out. But we resist, we tighten up, we distract, and we do it under the guise of staying strong. We're strong, right? We don't feel our emotions. We got this. Because I'm not crying means I'm cool. I'm all right. I'm fine. I must be okay. But here's what nobody tells you. That strength, it's not strength. It's suppression. And suppression always comes at a cost. You see, crying, it's not random. It's not this random thing that we do as humans. It's not just us being emotional. Tears actually have a purpose. It's a biological response. And your body, they produce 3 types of tears. Basal tears. They exist simply just to keep your eyes lubricated. Reflex tears, therefore when your eye's been irritated in some way. And then you have emotional tears. And they are what we're going to be talking about today. But here's where it gets really interesting about emotional tears. Emotional tears actually have stress hormones in them. Things like cortisol. So when you cry, you are actually releasing stress. And I'm not talking metaphorically, I'm talking physically. You're actually releasing stress via your eyes. And crying actually activates your parasympathetic nervous system, putting your body into a calming state. So when people say they actually feel better after a good cry, that's not in the head, that's actually what's happening. That's the purpose of tears. That's why I think crying as an experience is such a privilege. It's the ultimate act of self-care to yourself. It's the ultimate act of self-love, to allow yourself to trust yourself enough to be vulnerable with yourself and to allow that honesty to come flooding in, to experience those emotions that you find difficult, to be brave, to be courageous, to be vulnerable in those moments. That is powerful. That is the essence of who you are. Because within those tears, the purpose of those tears, whatever it is, it will not be pretend. It will not be imaginary. It will be real. And you will be allowing, honoring, validating that experience. But here's the problem. Most of us, and I mean most of us, this is not necessarily exclusive to any gender. We don't allow that to happen. And it's said that it's most common amongst men to suppress those tears. Perhaps it's because we're told not to cry, to man up, to be strong. But in those well-meaning moments, what we're actually learning is don't be emotional, don't feel, abandon yourself in those moments. And that, hopefully, if you're a long-term listener, you know that that's quite a dangerous thing to do. And often when people do it, it's not being unkind. We shouldn't then go shouting at people that say that. A lot of the time people tell us to do that because they are unable to witness our emotions. Maybe you're a person who looks and behaves a certain way and you give them confidence, you give them stability, you give them security. And then when they see you in that state of emotion, it frightens them. So they want you to stop crying. It's probably not about you. It's probably more about them and their feeling of safety. But what actually happens is we just store that emotion. We think we're getting rid of it. We're just bypassing it. We're overriding it, but we're not. We're just storing that emotion. We're allowing that emotion to build. We're allowing it to wait, to lay dormant, ready to strike at the moment that person steals your space in the supermarket. Imagine it like a pressure cooker, and imagine that pressure cooker stores emotions. Every emotion that you suppress, perhaps it's anger, we'll throw some sadness in there, a little bit of fear in there too. It's all going inside that pressure cooker. And every time you choose not to release that emotion, that pressure just builds. Now, eventually, one of 2 things is probably going to happen. You're either going to find that pressure cooker explodes, and boy, don't be in the way when that happens because it's going to be out of control and it's going to be a lot of regret afterwards, most likely. Things will get damaged, things will get said, things will get done, things will get challenging, I would think. Or the other thing is that it leaks out in ways that we don't even really recognize. We don't realize that that is because we are suppressing those emotions. That anger you can't explain. That anxiety that shows up out of nowhere. That emotional numbness that you've been taking pride in, thinking it's being strong. That's not random. That's unprocessed emotion. And the truth about it is that crying is probably one of the safest ways to manage our emotions, one of the safest ways to release those emotions. It's your body saying, I can't carry this anymore. But instead of listening, we shut down, we ignore, we suppress, we override, and then we distract ourselves until it feels easier for us to move on with our day. Phones, work, alcohol, gym, anything that helps us avoid sitting with what's actually there. But here's the truth, as always. Avoiding your emotions doesn't make you stronger. Understanding them does. Processing them does. Letting them move through you does. Think of it like blocking a pipeline. You're suppressing, you're holding back, you're not allowing what's there to flow. Whether you like the fact that you're crying, whether you want to or don't want to feel the way you feel in that moment is irrelevant, because that's how you really feel. And by telling yourself, not validating that emotion, by blocking that emotion, gaslighting yourself, all you're doing is creating that emotional blockage, that pressure cooker, that suppression, that build up. And before you know it, you start to get rashes, headaches, stomach aches. You start to be irrational with people. You start to overreact. All of these things start to happen because you are denying how you really feel. You've left that light on. And that battery is draining slowly, and it's becoming harder and harder and more difficult and difficult to exist. Now, let's talk about regulation, because people throw that word emotional regulation around a lot. But what does it actually mean? What does it mean when people say emotionally regulate? Well, I could tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean controlling your emotions. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I have never known, firstly, anyone that is legitimately controlling their emotions. They might outwardly be doing that, but not inside. And I'm not even sure it's something you should pursue doing. I've never seen it end well, let's say that. Because the key to it all is to allow what is already there. This is the ultimate way to get to know yourself. This is the ultimate way to respect yourself. This is the ultimate way to be with yourself, to have your own back, to support your own needs, to move forward with what is true, because your emotions are always true. They are how you feel. Now, the external situation could be different. You could have made a mistake, or you could have misunderstood a situation. That's okay. But how you feel about it is true. And crying plays a major role in that. Because when you cry, you actually start to breathe a bit slower. Your heart rate begins to regulate itself, and your body begins to shift out of stress mode. It's a reset. It's a natural reset. Now, let me be clear. Crying is not about breaking down. That's not what I'm saying. It's about releasing what you've been holding back. There's a difference, because breaking down feels kind of powerless, but crying, when done consciously, is incredibly powerful, because it means you're aware. It means you're being present. You're allowing yourself to feel what is real. So let me ask you, when was the last time you actually let yourself cry? Not hold it back, not wipe it away quickly, not apologize for doing it, but actually feel it and embrace it fully. And I know for some of you, it will probably be years. I regularly meet people that say, I can't remember the last time I cried. That's unbelievable to me. And I've been somebody that used to do that all of the time. But as I say, I've had a life-changing experience around that. But let me be clear about it. It's not because you're not experiencing the pain. It's because you've trained yourself to not express it. Now, I learned this some years back. I was experiencing a very distressing situation, and I was having a lot of really strange physical responses to that stressful situation. I found myself not being able to sleep. I found my appetite dropping away. I started to get this really random rash that would appear out of nowhere. These bouts of anxiety, feeling quite emotional, but in an angry way. I was really not myself. And somehow there was this internal knowing that I needed to cry. When I would watch it on TV, when people would talk about it, I'd find I had this feeling of envy or jealousy, or just this attraction towards the idea of it. So, and I'm not saying this is right, this is just what I did. I took myself off into my garage, and there was always this song that I could never listen to. It's called Hurt by Johnny Cash. And I put it on, and I could feel something. I think it was fear. And then I played it again, and it just felt like, metaphorically, there were these walls that were just starting to weaken. And then I played it again. And there's a certain point in the song, and it just hit me. And it felt like I'd opened up something so powerful. And the experience I had then, the crying, the real sadness, the unapologetic, snot-filled crying experience was cathartic, I suppose. But man, I felt better afterwards. I actually felt like it felt like a drug. It felt like it really, really helped me. It felt like this feeling of release, this tension within me just dissipated away. And I thought to myself in that moment, first of all, I had a little bit of laughter to myself at the end because it was just so wild that I was sat in the garage on my own crying. Then I thought to myself, wow, that was a powerful, powerful experience. Bordering on addictive. Because once you've experienced it and you've allowed yourself in that way, that feeling of release is absolutely incredible. Because this is where the disconnect comes in. Because if you can't access your sadness, you will also struggle to access joy. What do I mean? If you suppress one emotion, you don't just suppress that one emotion, you dull everything. People report a similar experience with antidepressants. It doesn't just take away the lowness, it takes away the highs too. You kind of sit on this flat line. And as far as I'm concerned, when there's a flat line, it means something is dead. And this is it. You don't want to deaden those emotions. Our emotions is our reflection of how we're experiencing life. It's a navigational tool. Emotions are messages. They're there to tell us what's for us, what's not for us. They help us make decisions. They're powerful and they're necessary. And the people that do not allow themselves to experience those emotions, whether it be crying or whatever else, they're not living life fully. They might think they are, but I've come to learn from working with some of these people that that's not what's happening at all. When you shut down your sadness, you also shut down your ability to feel deeply. Love, connection, fulfillment, all of it. So, why do we resist crying? I believe it comes down to three things. Number one, our conditioning. We were simply taught it as a child, and that's what we began to practice, and as we know, what we practice, we become quite good at. Number two, our emotions can feel quite scary. Fear could be a really massive reason why we're not allowing ourselves to cry. Fear of losing control, fear of being judged, fear of whatever. And number three, just a misunderstanding. I think society in its entirety has conditioned us to believe that crying is about weakness. It's about not being strong. And that's what we're supposed to be, right? Strong. We're supposed to man up, get on with it, not be too emotional. We need someone that's reliable. We need someone that's solid, stable. And when you're crying, you're none of those things, right? Well, no. I actually think it's the complete opposite. Now, there are times for crying, and sometimes we don't have control over that. If we see something sad and we're in public, then it is what it is. But maybe we can still have those tears, still have those emotions, but have them our own way, in a place that we feel safe, a place that we feel is appropriate. Because the truth is, none of those things are true. Conditioning, fear, misunderstandings, they're all things that we've learned. And if we can learn them, we can unlearn them. They're learned beliefs. I'd like to offer a different way to look at it. Crying isn't weakness. It's communication. It's your body's way of communicating with you. It's your mind's way of saying, there's something here that needs your attention. Pay attention. And what happens then? Well, something shifts. You create space. You lighten the load. And most importantly, you reconnect with yourself. You see, I've had moments in my life when I've cried, and it's not been because I've been broken in any way. It's been because I've finally stopped pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. And in those moments, something powerful can happen. Clarity, relief, honesty. Because crying forces the truth. You can't fake it anymore. You can't hide from it anymore. It's raw. And in that rawness, there's growth. Now, I'm not saying that you should just sit around crying all day. That's not what I'm saying. That's not the message. But what the message is here is, when you feel it, don't stop it. Don't hold it back. Allow it. Honor it. Give yourself the privilege of those tears. Don't stop it when it comes. Don't suppress it. Don't judge it. Instead, observe it. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Where is this coming from? What have I been holding on to? Because behind every tear, there's a message. And if you ignore that message, it doesn't go away. It just finds another way to show up. So here's my challenge to you. Next time you have an experience and you can feel that lump in your throat, that emotion rising, that tension in your body, that fear, whatever it is that happens when you start to know that tears are coming, don't fight it. Allow it and see what happens. Experience it, embrace it, and learn from that experience. Because that's your inner wisdom. That's you respecting yourself. That's the ultimate act of self-care. That's you backing yourself 100%. I don't care what other people think. I don't care what they've got to tell me. I'm going to listen to myself in this moment. I'm going to fully embody these tears and see what you learn. See what you learn about yourself. But the point here is that it's a privilege, it's an honor. And that's how you should treat it, in my opinion. And there's no doubt it will be an uncomfortable and vulnerable moment. But that's not weakness. That's connection. Connection to yourself and where real strength comes from. You don't have to have it all together all the time. You don't need to be fine. You just need to be honest. And honest, most importantly, with yourself. And sometimes, honesty looks like tears. Thank you for listening today. As you're probably aware, because I've been raving on about it on social media, we've digitalized the life audit and people love it. I was getting told for a very long time, dude, your life audit, the PDF, I love the questions. I've been having to write it out. So can you make it something I can fill out online? I listened and it's there. I'll put it in the description. Go and fill it out. It's a massive claim, but it is literally changing life. People are making big decisions because finally that honesty is coming out. And there's things that they have chosen not to listen to that they're kind of like, yeah, that's the thing. I better do something about that. And hopefully they will. Anyway, thank you very much for listening today. And I'll see you next week on another episode of the Johnny Lawrence Podcast.